What's up, guys? So, this is going to be episode 2. Today, I'm going to be going through Matthew McConaughey's new book, Poems and Prayers. I'm not going to do like a full book review. I figured that'd be pretty boring, so I'm going to split it into 3 different parts. Today, I'm just pretty much just going to be going through the first chapter and just reading directly out of it and then just kind of riffing off of it. I wrote a page of kind of my thoughts on it, and then I'm going to expand on that. So, I'm going to read the first part that I have highlighted. So many of us today are out to prove that the truth is just an outdated, nostalgic notion, that honesty, along with being correct and right, is now a diluted currency in our cultural economy. With an epidemic of half-cocked logic and illusions being sold as sound conclusions, it's more than hard to know what to believe in. It's hard to believe. But I don't want to quit believing, and I don't want to stop believing in humanity, you, myself, our potential. I'm not ready to concede that entertainment and misinformation are now our garden of knowledge, that lies are just what we tell each other, especially ourselves, that trust is no longer the coin of the realm, that doubt's worth more than hope, that there's no difference between dreams and illusions. So, just off that first part, what I think is I think that we're not honest with ourselves nowadays. I think that it's hard to be honest with ourselves nowadays, especially whenever everyone else is not honest with themselves and they're showing these great, beautiful lifestyles, exotic lifestyles on social media, and they're creating these unrealistic expectations for not only themselves, because whenever they look in the mirror, they're like, "Oh, I'm not this great." I've done it a million times. Like, "Oh, I'm not this great person that I show myself to be on social media," and I think that's a hard thing to live with. And then it also makes it hard for other people to look at that lifestyle and be like, "Why am I not doing that? Why am I not on a boat every single day or in Europe or traveling the world or doing this, that, and the other? Why am I working a 9 to 5?" When that's okay too. Everyone has their own thing. Is in their own place in life. The person who's traveling all over the world is upset about something completely different. Everyone's in their own situation. Like I said yesterday, the biggest thing that's ever happened to you is the biggest thing that's ever happened to you. So I think just being more real with ourselves and being more real with others is something that will definitely help that. I'm not ready for my conscience to retreat. I'm not ready to accept that reality is not enough. In our age of politics, AI, plastic surgery, and high frequency fix it and post deepfakes deceptions, I often find myself walking away from all the knowledge and reality more confused, more frustrated, and less well advised than I was before I consumed it. As a people, we don't seem to be perceiving properly, which means we are not desiring properly, which means we are understanding properly. And as long as we don't understand properly, we're not going to act properly. So I think that goes back to we're not perceiving properly, which means we're not desiring properly, which means we're not understanding properly. And if we don't understand, it means we're not going to act properly. If we're not perceiving properly, if we're not seeing realistic expectations, we're not seeing what someone's life actually looks like, then we're going to have these unrealistic expectations. We're not desiring properly. And then whenever we're not desiring properly, that means we're not understanding properly. Whenever you have these unrealistic expectations, it's impossible to meet unrealistic expectations. You're never going to meet an unrealistic expectation. And so when you disappoint yourself enough times and you set a goal, even if it's unrealistic or not, and you fall short enough times and you don't have, like I said yesterday, that ability to be like, okay, I fell short, I wasn't perfect, but I'm okay with that, it starts to eat at you and you start to look in the mirror and lose trust in yourself. You start to lose hope in yourself. You start to be super disappointed. You start to become a cynic. You start to become negative, doubt all the time. And I think that that's where that comes from, is when we're not perceiving properly, then we're not desiring properly, we're having all these unrealistic expectations, then we're never going to act properly. We're always going to be disappointed with ourselves. We're always going to be disappointed with the world. We're always going to be mad at the world. We're always going to find something to be upset about, something to be negative about, something to be like, oh, that's why I didn't get what I wanted. So I think that that's a really, really slippery slope, and I think that that's something we need to be careful with. Um, like most of us, I'm trying to navigate and adapt as shrewdly as I can to our changing times, to understand where I fit in, where I don't, define what I stand for and what I won't. But I find myself increasingly tempted to just settle for the false and profane as acceptable signs of our times. Should I maintain a beginner's mind and continue to seek the magic in life when the facts deny reason to do so? How do I stave off the cynic's disease and still remain a hopeful skeptic? Are we hoping to survive or survive into hope? Maybe that's the point. To admit that evil is necessary and to choose to rise above it or not. To admit the ugly facts and untruths all around and inside us and still believe. I think that is the point. So, maintaining a beginner's mindset and continuing to seek the magic in life, when you know, like, there's facts to deny that. There are facts to deny. The world's not perfect. The world's not just this beautiful place that everything goes right, but still trying to look for the magic and look for what makes you happy and look for kind of seeking perfection in a way, chasing perfection in a way. I think that a lot of us would be a lot happier if we chase perfection. Like, I think that having something every single day that you're currently chasing and you're working towards, and I get, yesterday I feel like I didn't voice this fact. I get that I'm coming off from a privileged, quote unquote, perspective. I know that there are people who can look at me and be like, oh, well, you have a good job and you have a good apartment. Like, I'm worried about paying the next month's rent. Like, I'm worried about paying for my kids to eat. I get that 100%. So I know that it is privilege for me to say, oh, find something that you want to work towards and build every single day. I know that some people are not in the position that they can do that. And I understand that, and I can be humble and say, I get that. Let's talk about it. Let's try and find a middle ground. But I think that also at the same time, we do need to find something to believe in. It talks a little about it later, but like believing in something that's bigger than us, whether that's a goal that we have and a dream that we have, or whether that's a higher power and that's believing in God or whatever your God is, and having a higher power that's something that's bigger than you to believe in. I think that that gives us hope too. Um, to admit that evil is necessary and choose to rise above it or not. To admit the facts and the ugly, I think that is the point. Yeah, to still believe. And I think, like I said, like having something to believe in when you realize life is a really shitty place, but I'm still going to try and make the absolute best out of it. And I think that that's important. I think that that's something that we need to do more of. And like I said, I realize that I may be speaking from a privileged standpoint when I say that we all need to do a little more of that. I realize that some people have bigger worries than that, but I think that if we put in a little bit of effort and a little bit of time into doing that, that I think that we could maybe see results that make life better in other arenas. Um, I think that that's something that we definitely need to talk more about and have more conversations about and get out more in the open. Um, Prayer can also be a scream, a plea, a question, an expression of pain and longing, or a therapeutic means of facing a monster within us. In times of chaos, prayer restores order, and regardless of the higher power you're praying to, a committed belief in our continued improvement is how we first restore order in ourselves. So, like exactly what I just said, like having something to believe in, and whether literally word for word, exactly whether that's a higher power or that's just our continued improvement and having a dream or a belief, like having something to believe in is important. So I think that me speaking from a privileged point of view, I can tell someone who is not in that same place that I am, that having a higher power or something to believe in that way, I think is something that we can all do. I think that that's free to us all. That is something that we can all do in our day-to-day lives, is having something to put our hope and put our beliefs into. Um, so I think that that's something that we can do more of. In a society that suffers from the illusion that privation and possessions equal progress, so I had to look up privation, and it's basically like the lack of a basic human skill or basic human need. So I think that that's saying like it suffers from the illusion that privation and possessions equal progress, like the lack of having basic moral and ethical standards as a human in the act of having like possessions. So basically saying like having a nice car and not caring who you screwed over to get there is the illusion of progress and the illusion of success. I think is a really, really dangerous concept. I think that we need to be more proud of how we got that thing than the thing itself. I think that it's really, really dangerous whenever we start to view possessions as progress and privation, a new word that I just learned, as progress as well. Um, Prayer promotes what I believe is a more genuine definition of the word, the development of human potential to become a broadcaster and receiver of values, because prayer intentionally aligns us with what we value most. The practice of prayer is progress. The ultimate goal of prayer is to align our earthly ambitions to be in accordance with divinity's law. This means believing in more than who we are, but rather in who we can be. So I think that aligning our earthly ambitions to be in accordance with divinity's law is a really important one, because I think that when you do have faith and you do believe in a higher power, but you are trying to work on your continued improvement, I think that that's a really, really tricky thing to balance. I think and that's why we need prayer to kind of balance that, to keep us in check and to say, okay, you're letting your earthly desires get a little bit ahead of you there, bud. Like, you need to slow down there. You need to start talking to God more. You need to start figuring out, well, why am I getting too ambitious to the point where I'm willing to screw someone over to get there? I think that's I think yesterday I also didn't talk about how I've been in that position a million times where I've looked at myself in the mirror afterwards and been like, I don't like how you did that and you got that thing that you got. And I think that it's really tricky too whenever now you look around and everyone is kind of making it seem like if you don't do that, then what are you doing? And I think it goes along with like the whole unrealistic expectations from people and just what you're seeing on social media. You're seeing all these things from people and you're not really knowing, well, what am I, like, where do I fit in? When am I going to get that thing? You know, you start to think, oh, am I supposed to have that thing? Am I supposed to want that thing? Is that supposed to be what my goal in life is? Is that supposed to be the point of life, is to get a car, to get a jet, or to have all this money? I think that's whenever we start to lose sight of who we are as people and what the point of life is and the purpose in life is. And when we start to only think about the possessions and what we can get from things like that, I think that's when we really lose sight of ourselves and we don't care how we get those things. And I think that was the last thing that I highlighted. I really just wanted to go through that first chapter because the rest of it is poems. And so I want to do a video going through that, a video going through the poems, and then a video of kind of like a conclusion on what I thought of the entire book. He has like a funny way of saying some things. So some of it is definitely, you have to read it a few times, and so I definitely don't want to try and break it down after just my first time of reading it. I definitely want to read it a few times. So just what I wrote down, I'll just read the whole thing because I was wanting to read it first and then kind of give what I thought, but I kind of gave what I thought while I was reading it. So I would just read directly from my journal. We're not as honest with ourselves anymore, and I wonder if that's because expectations are so high now that we've progressed as a society, because you can look around on social media and see unrealistic expectations of what the next person is doing. I'm not ready to accept that reality is not enough. I think that we can all do better at having realistic expectations and looking around at everyone else's life and thinking that the grass is always greener. We can all be a little more human and a little more real. We're not perceiving properly, which means we're not seeing things how they really are in someone's life. Therefore, we develop unrealistic expectations for our own lives that will ultimately disappoint us. And I think that that's important too. Like, whenever we're looking at other people's lives and we're seeing these unrealistic expectations and we're not realizing social media is a highlight reel of someone's life. Social media is the best moments of someone's life. Like, you're not going to see the true up and downs of someone's life on their social media. So you shouldn't look at someone's social media and compare your life to that, directly. You shouldn't look at social media and be like, oh, well, I should have that thing. Why am I working a 9 to 5 and in the corporate office when this person's traveling every single day? Because that person who's traveling every single day has a completely different set of problems. They're struggling with their own stuff. Like, everybody has their own thing. So I think that to look at someone else's highlight of their lives and to be like, why is my life not like that, is a super, super dangerous thing to do. And I think that that is what develops these unrealistic expectations. And I think that that's a really bad thing for society. And I think that social media technology is a great thing, and it's been awesome for a lot of things, but I think that in a lot of ways it does hurt us just to have that at our fingertips, and in a lot of different ways, to have instant dopamine at your fingertips, to have the highlight of someone else's life, like I said, at your fingertips, to have the ability to talk to someone instantaneously at your fingertips, whether that's good or bad, because I feel like back then we had time to kind of regulate our emotions and to kind of think about things and think about how we felt about things, and before we just went and spewed out a bunch of feelings and a bunch of sometimes nonsense. Sometimes it is how we're truly feeling, but maybe we didn't mean to say it that way, and we could have worded it differently, and that could have saved us a lot of time and heartache and saved a lot of people stress. So I think that there are a lot of things that social media and technology have hindered, and I think made it a lot more difficult. I think with like human connection and human relationships, it's made it a lot more difficult with hookup culture, stuff like that. Like I said, instant dopamine, it's made it available to our fingertips, I think is a really, really dangerous thing. I think that when also another thing is like when you have dopamine instantaneously, it makes your standards and your expectations for other things shocked. So I mean, I think that that's another that might be another thing that he was meaning whenever we're perceiving things off, we're going to desire things off. Like when you're seeing things on, it's all goes back to the same thing, like dopamine. I think that it's a very, very tricky thing. I think that our body produces natural dopamine, and I think that there are natural ways to get dopamine, but I think that when you're able to get dopamine really, really fast, it goes back to when you're getting things without working for them. If you're getting some sort of dopamine without putting in some sort of effort or sweating to get that, literally or figuratively, it's probably not the best thing for you. It's probably not the healthiest thing for you. So I think that just watching what we're receiving and what we're intaking is going to make what we're putting out a lot more like it's going to just make us better as a whole. I think that we need to be very, very careful with what we're letting into our dopamine receptors, I would call it. And sorry guys, I can ramble, so I kind of get off topic sometimes. Where was I? And when we disappoint ourselves enough times, we lose hope/trust in ourselves. And that is where we go left as a person. I think that the point of life is to adapt and that things will never be perfect, but still having some sort of hope or belief in a higher power comes in. So I think that like I said, like when you disappoint yourself enough times, you're going to lose trust in yourself. And then whenever you lose trust in yourself and you don't have that self-respect and that genuine self-confidence and that self-love for yourself, like I said yesterday, it becomes a really, really dark, dark place because you don't know who you are as a person, and you don't know what you stand for and what you won't stand for, and what you like and what you don't like. You're kind of lost as a person, and when you don't know what you like and what you don't like, and you don't know what extent you'll go to get something and what you won't do. You don't know what you'll stand for and what you won't. It comes back to ethics and having a moral compass and knowing who we are as people. And if I have a different moral compass than you have, that's completely fine. But knowing that we both have those boundaries that we both should not cross, and we both have lines that we both shouldn't cross, or else, I think that that's what being a man is. I think that that's what we've lost now as a society, is realizing that being a man is not being this big macho man, but it's being, hey, I have these boundaries and I have these lines and I draw them here. And if you try to trespass on those, then there will be consequences. That's what being a man is. And that's what having boundaries is. I think that we, now as a society, we see being a man as having success and making a six-figure salary, or being an entrepreneur and making a bunch of money and having the nice cars and sleeping with a bunch of women. And no, I think it's, in a lot of ways, I think it's actually the opposite. I think that this could be a whole nother episode, but just with men and women's relationships nowadays, I think that just in both ways, it goes both ways. I think that just with the hookup culture nowadays, with how men view women, with how women view men, I think that it's all skewed. I think that we should go back to in a lot of ways. I don't think in every way, but I think in a lot of ways we could use a little bit more of a traditional mindset and a traditional view on things to say, hey, this is how we are, this is how things are. And I think that as humans, we're all different, we're all completely different, but accepting each other and accepting those differences is the point of life. And whether that's you accepting the difference in someone physically, emotionally, socially, politically, there are so many different ways. I think that it gives us different perspectives, and it gives us different viewpoints to be able to sit down and talk to someone and genuinely connect with someone and to have a relationship with someone who views things differently. I think that it's refreshing a lot of the time to hear a different perspective and to hear a different viewpoint on things and to think, oh, that's why that person thinks that thing. That's interesting. Oh, well, maybe I should think about things that way a little bit more of the time. I think that that's something that we can all do more of. And I think that that's something that's important. And that's the end of what I wrote. So I think I'm going to wrap it up there. I think I rambled for a good amount of time, but I definitely want to start talking more about, I definitely want to get into more of, I think it's definitely a tricky topic, and I think it's a slippery slope, but more into, because I the whole point of this podcast is to reach out to people my age and even younger, and growing and developing minds in young men that may be feeling like I'm not like everyone else who just wants all the fast cars and to sleep with a bunch of women, and once I always call it like the red pill, whatever you want to call it, Andrew Tate the viewpoint on things. And I think that yes, a strong masculine man is important. A strong masculine man in the household is important. But I think that it's okay to look at things and be like, well, I want to have a relationship with someone. I want to genuinely have a connection with someone before I take things to the next level with someone, or before I take the next step with someone. I think that it's okay to have that viewpoint on things and to be, I don't know what you would call it nowadays. I think that people would use a lot of different words for it nowadays, but I would just call it traditional. Like, to want that marriage and to want that love and to want kids and to want that family life, and to not want to just sleep around with a bunch of women and meet different women every single night, and kind of what people are showing on social media now, like these unrealistic expectations. What's showed on social media, like kind of like you're a loser if you don't sleep with a bunch of women. And it's like, I think that we need more voices telling us it's okay if that's not you. It's okay if that's not what you think is cool, and that's not what you think is flashy, and that's not what you want. That's not, a lot of the time, that's not a realistic expectation. I think it's cooler to build a genuine relationship with someone that you care about and someone that you love, and over time develop that chemistry and to develop that connection and to build off of that with someone. I think that that's one of the most beautiful things we can do as human beings, and I think that that's one of the other points of life. Like, that's one of the whole purpose that we're on this earth, is to connect with each other and to build these relationships, platonic or not. I think that that's really, really important, and that's something that we're lacking nowadays, and that's something that we're lacking voices telling us, hey, that's okay. Hey, it's okay to feel that way. but at the same time, you're still a strong masculine man. Like, it's okay to be that way. It's not, you're not looked at as any less masculine or any less or any more feminine than the next guy just because that's how you view things. And I think that that's something that we could all hear a lot more of and use a lot more of. And I think that that's something that's really, really important. That's something that I want to talk more about. I want to talk to different men who have different perspectives and different viewpoints on that, because some men genuinely, wholeheartedly do not have that viewpoint, and that's okay too. And I think that that's something that we should talk about and have conversations, and why they feel that way and how they got that way, and if it's something that's happened in their life to make them feel that way, and develop that viewpoint on things. So I think that's something that I definitely want to spend more time talking about. I'm going to wrap it up here so I don't keep rambling, because I'll do that forever. But yeah, good night, guys.